Okay, Hearthstone is the next topic. This is going to be a quick one. The new expansion has released. Of course, it's been out since December 1st, and it is now December 23rd. So, yeah, we're talking about this a little bit late, but I wanted to wait until the meta kind of settled to kind of address it. And it seems that basically the meta is filled with pirates. So, the pirate menace, ARRRRRR, has taken over Hearthstone. Yeah, so pirate decks. At first, there was the Pirate Warrior, a menace to all other decks. It turns out that one of the best legendaries in the expansion was a 1-mana 1/1 charge called Patches. Anytime you play a pirate, it plays itself automatically from your deck, and you have an additional 1-mana 1/1 to deal damage with from the very beginning of the game, ideally, if you get a 1-drop pirate. Yeah, it's been really good. And then when Pirate Warrior became too much, Pirate Shaman became a thing. So basically an aggro shaman built with a slight pirate theme, which really hard counters the Pirate Warrior. And then there's Pirate Rogue, which has come in to kind of try to counter Pirate Shaman. Yeah. So as you can see, there's a lot of pirates. So what's happened to control decks? Well, unfortunately, control decks are a little bit slow now. So a lot of the control decks are no longer viable in the meta. Things like N'Zoth Control Warrior have been tried by popular streamers like Trump recently to mostly no success or neutral kind of success. Unfortunately, the deck is just way too slow to be played in the crushing meta. Once you hit Legend, you can kind of play some slower decks, but during the ladder climb, it is not a good idea to play those kind of heavy control decks. You're just going to get run over and you're going to get frustrated and you're going to rage quit really quickly. Trust me. Yeah. Now, am I saying that you should go out there and play a pirate deck? Well, I mean, if that's your thing, go for it. But if you're one of those people who really, really hates aggro and you'd feel like you're compromising your morals by playing an aggro deck, well, you don't have to. There's still actually a lot of good counter decks out there. Dragon Priest has been a huge counter to Pirate Warrior and Pirate Shaman as well, of course. All the pirate decks in general. Due to big health taunt minions that are in that deck, like the 4-mana 3/6 taunt Twilight Guardian is one of the biggest ones. Of course, Chill Maw, the 7-mana 6/6 3 damage AoE on Death Rattle one. That is the second one. So yeah, there are some good decks out there. The best control deck, not really control deck, more of a kind of a, I guess, mid-rangey control deck would be Reno Lock. Reno Lock's huge AoEs and the ability to create massive taunt minions with Faceless Shambler and things like Twilight Drake are huge for the Warlock class. There's a lot of combos that can be done with that deck that can't be done with other decks. There's a lot of AoE in that deck with Shadow Flame, Hellfire, Twisting Nether on 8. There's just a lot of really powerful, and of course the card advantage that other classes don't get through the hero power is probably the thing that makes Reno Lock much better than something like Reno Priest. Personally, I was trying to play Reno Priest a lot during the beginning, and I didn't have a lot of success with it. Particularly, I had a really good success with aggro decks, but then literally every Reno Lock that I played against would be an auto loss. Every Jade Druid is another one of the big good classes that you can counter aggro decks with. Kind of. It's not as good of aggro, but it's basically a free win against slow decks because over time you can just shuffle more and more Jade Golems into your deck, and first you get a 1/1, then you get a 2/2, then you get a 3/3. As you can see, as the game drags on, eventually your minions become way too big to deal with. And because of the Druid's Jade Idol, which automatically shuffles 3 copies of itself into your deck, you can keep that going infinitely. So you get infinite value out of a card like that. Is it a game-breaking card? Maybe. I think that the way that Blizzard should fix... So what does Jade Druid do, basically, is that it basically makes slow control decks without some kind of burst finisher. You know, Agrolock has the Leroy Jenkins Faceless Manipulator Power Overwhelming combination that does 20 burst damage to close out the game. What am I thinking of? Warrior has like N'Zoth, which can bring back all your minions for huge damage, assuming that the opponent has no way to mass AoE the board with Brawl or something like that. But Reno Priest, the way that it's built currently in most iterations, does not have any burst. So it mostly plays a grindy game, and basically grinder decks are impossible to play right now because of Jade Druid and the infinite value. You need to close out the game against a Jade Druid before they can start getting up to like 6/6s and 7/7 Jade Golems. Unfortunately, there's no way to do that with that kind of deck as it's built currently. I think we're going to see some kind of working with that kind of deck simply because of the strength of new cards like Raza the Chained, which makes your hero power cost 0 for the whole game. And what's the other one? Kazakis, which basically can give you up to 2 really powerful spells if played with Bran Bronzebeard. Of course, Bran Bronzebeard is going to be rotating out soon, so I think that the Reno decks are going to need some help after that, because right now Kazakis is one of the big win conditions for a lot of those decks against like Jade Druid, for example. I think what Blizzard could do is make it so that Druids can only shuffle 1 time per game. So they can only, the effect is choose one. So you can either choose to summon the Jade Golem with whatever stat line you're currently at, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, etc. Or you can shuffle 3 copies of it into your deck and you don't summon anything. Of course, if it's played together with Fandral, which makes choose one effects do both things, then you're going to get both effects. But I think that if Blizzard adjusted it so you could only shuffle once per game, even, I don't know, maybe I think some testing would need to be done. Maybe once per copy of the card in your deck. So if you have 2 copies of the card in your deck, you can do it twice per game. I think that's still a little OP, but maybe it would give certain decks the ability through enough like Kazakis potions or something like that that they could deal with it. I think once would probably be the limit that should be set, because that way Druids can't generate infinite value. They can't infinitely prevent themselves from fatiguing out and shit like that. So I do think that something needs to be done about it. I think that the aggro warrior and the pirate decks are really strong right now, but I don't think that anything really needs to be done about those decks. I think that this is finally pirates coming to fruition as they were always intended to be. I don't think that the deck is as out of control as something like an Undertaker deck. I think that the fact of the matter is that the control decks are just so bad right now with the tools that they got in the expansion that everyone bitches about aggro a lot, but actually I don't think it's a huge problem. It is a problem that everyone's playing those decks so that you're more likely to encounter that style of deck, and it kind of makes the gameplay more dreary. I wish that there were more decks that were actually competitive, but again, because of certain decks on the control end of things or on the slower end of things like Jade Druid, for example, that are just so OP, other control decks that want to play like a grindy game like Reno Priest could have been, for example, or even Reno Mage could have been. Unfortunately, those decks just aren't good. And so there's not really a lot of choice as to what type of deck you can play. I mean, you can play pirates, either rogue, shaman, or warrior, although I would argue that rogue is not the best one. Or you can play Jade Shaman, or you can play Jade Druid or Reno Lock. That's really it. And most people are not playing, especially like Reno Lock, because of the high wallet cost that you would need to put a lot of money into the game to get all the cards that you would need to put into that deck. So that's another problem with aggro decks. They're just naturally cheaper to make, so most of the free-to-play players play aggro decks. That's just a fact of the game. And while I don't think that there's any real way to get around that, it would be nice if Blizzard would find a way to encourage people to buy more packs, to get more legendaries, to build better decks that aren't aggro. But Blizzard likes money, so I don't think we're going to be seeing anything like that happening anytime soon.